Welcome to the Wild and Free series, a collection of down-to-earth conversations with leaders in authenticity, self-awareness, and service to the world. I'm Katie Hess, founder of LOTUSWEI. May these conversations awaken your inner explorer and open the doorway to more freedom, bravery, and wildness.
How's it going?
What's up?
Good to see you. I'm going to introduce you really quick in case there is anybody out there who does not know Nick yet. Nick is a director. He's an author. He's the founder of Sacred Science, which is a platform and community for knowledge seekers to explore natural healing, plant medicine, and the wisdom of ancient cultures. He helps people to learn more, live better, and reconnect with our planet. He's the director of the Sacred Science and the Tapping Solution, and many, many more. Remedy. Oh my gosh, there's so many to name. We've been friends for a really long time, and I love that the fun fact is that we met in New Mexico at Stephen Tarabiner's house, and that was how we first came together.
That was amazing. That was an amazing time.
So tell me, this is what Chet told me to do. Tell me the most vulnerable thing. Just kidding.
I mean, I could tell you so many vulnerable things. I'm an open book. I'm an open book.
Well, so we just we're getting together. We'll probably be on, for those of you listening, thanks for joining us. We'll probably be on for about 30 minutes. At the end, if you want to ask any questions, we'll be up for questions. So yeah, I want to talk about what should we talk about? I want to talk about all things like filmmaking. We're celebrating the release of the Flower Hunters episodes. You probably haven't even gotten a chance to watch one, huh?
I haven't watched any of them. I know all about them. I'm excited. You and I have been conceptualizing and brainstorming on this, and I can't wait to watch them. I specifically can't wait to watch. There's an episode that takes place in Nepal, right?
Yes. Oh my God, I cannot wait for those.
Yeah, I can't wait either. I want to watch it bad. How was it? How was it filming it? First of all, let me ask you some questions here. Who did you bring with you and who filmed it with you?
Are we talking Wyoming or are we talking Nepal?
We're talking Nepal.
Nepal was so Taylor and I were doing the flower hunting. We also had Dee Dee and Justin like present for the trip and all the different types of like spiritual experiences, but they weren't there for the jungle orchid hunting extravaganza. We took two guys with us. One was Mahendra, who is like an orchid expert, and he can spot a wild orchid from a mile away at the top of the tree, and then he can like shimmy up the tree, which was pretty awesome.
Well,
He was a really wonderful guide. And then we also, based on the advice of one of our spiritual teachers in Kathmandu, we brought along a very dear Tibetan Buddhist monk with us. So we had botanist and monk, and then Taylor and I.
Okay, can you describe the climate zones in Nepal? Because I think for a lot of us, when we think of Nepal, when I say a lot of us, I really mean myself. When I think of Nepal, I think of the Golden Child. You ever see the Golden Child in the '80s with Eddie Murphy, and he's got to take the child back. He's got to find the origins of where this child's from, and then like you see Nepal, and it's freezing cold. It's just a constant snowstorm. Until they go into that little temple thing and they have to go through all the crazy obstacles and almost die. But you don't think about Nepal as having jungle. And so for those of us who are uncultured, myself included, when it comes to this part of the world, is Nepal? How is it possible that you have these crazy mountains and then you also have tropics within like not very far away from each other? How's that?
I
How does
know.
that work?
It's super rich. I mean, you're like, there's so many beautiful mountains. I mean, people tend to think of like Mount Everest, right? But there's the Annapurna Mountains, there's the Mustang Mountains. There's so many beautiful mountains. And then you have so many national parks that are jungles. Like we've got Chitwan down closer to India where you can see wild rhinoceros, you can see wild elephant, wild crocodiles, tigers, big, big, big cats, you know? I mean, and there are national parks all over. Nepal is actually quite big. In some of the more rural areas, it almost reminds me a little bit of Taiwan. I don't know if you've been to Taiwan, but it's that kind of
No.
like luscious, like luscious jungly mountain look. But the jungles in Taiwan are pretty safe. The jungles in Nepal have wild animals, and they have like cobra snakes, like
Uh,
yeah. So that's why we brought guides with us. Because
I
their wild
can
animals are no joke.
I can't wait. I can't wait to watch it. Personal interests we're doing all kinds of groundwork for. a potential documentary series that you and I've talked about this, but that follows the Silk routes. And the Silk routes have only been called the Silk routes for like about 150 years. They really were more like the spice routes, the spice roads. And so I am stoked. You gotta bring me to Nepal next time we go, because that's one of the main areas of interest for us in terms of trying to trace out these ancient spice roads and the cultures that brought us these different, these different spices and herbs and medicinals from I guess India, Nepal, Tibet, all the way into China, up through Mongolia, and then just north and south of there, like fingering up into this, up into Siberia, and then down into the different ports um, along the Indian Ocean, and then into, just down even further south from there. But Nepal's like the heart of it all. And how many languages are spoken there? 150 different dialects based on where you're from and what little canyon you're in. It's like you have your own different. So yeah, it's such an incredible cultural part of the world. I mean, there's so much richness there.
I think the thing that surprises me the most, and I think will surprise you the most, and that you'll probably love the most about it, is that it is one of the places I've been to where people's hearts are just so open. Like I've never experienced anything like it. I mean, like, I'd always heard like, oh, Nepal's kind of like a softer version of India. But like this second trip was so much more, I don't know, it's like you think like you feel normal here in the States, right? Like we feel pretty normal. We don't feel like, our hearts are that hard. Like we're pretty vulnerable people. Like we can be
I mean,
authentic.
I don't ever feel normal, but I'll just kind of, yeah, sure, yeah, we do. Yeah, totally. You're right.
Then you get to Nepal and it's like people look at you or they give you affection or they say something to you in a way it hits so deep. And it's like any sort of like barrier, protection, hardness of the heart, self-protection, it just becomes so apparent. And then like you have the opportunity to dissolve that away. It's like what do they call it in Nepal? It's like never-ending peace and love. It's like you meet Nepalis and instantly you're friends. There's no like warm-up period. There's no like let's get to know each other for a few years and then maybe I'll call you my friend, or like we'll get close. It's like instantly. And I realized too that it's because their culture is based on who you are. It's not based on your accomplishments, or what you do in life, or like there's this one saying that Nepalis kept saying to me, "I'm so proud of you." And I had to ask, my Orchid friend, like, what do they actually mean when they say they're proud of me? Did I do something? Like, are they responding to something I've done? And it's more like, I'm proud of who you are. Like, I'm proud to be your friend. I'm proud to be in your presence. I'm proud of your essence, And I realized like, oh, wow, that's so crazy. Because if I say I'm proud of you, Nick, you're going to be like spinning about like, which accomplishment, which thing, what did I do to make her feel that way? But like, it's not based on doing there. It's like already who you already are, period, end of story. And they already love you, and they already love you unconditionally for everything, and done. It's like kind of mind-blowing how much acceptance there is and love there. I think that's the part that will probably hit you sideways. You'll think you're there to film the spice route, and then you'll be like, whoa, what is this?
Yeah. What percentage of the population is Buddhist, and what percentage of the population is Hindu, and what percentage of the population are other things? I mean, I've heard that there's also Christianity is kind of spread far and wide, and so how does that kind of break?
Good question. I don't know the exact numbers, but majority is Hindu, and next would be Buddhist, and then maybe like a handful of small, tiny percentage of Christian.
Got it. Interesting. That's amazing. Yeah, I live in Boulder, as you know, and there's a serious Nepalese population here, and so I'm always
Oh.
talking to different people from Nepal about how amazing Nepal is, and um, yeah, it just blows my mind. A lot of the Nepalese that live here are Buddhists, um, and I was going to ask you this. It's something that I've got like three different like ancient Buddhist texts open these days. Does everyone know how devout of a Buddhist you are? Is that part of the LOTUSWEI branding that you tell everybody about what you do in your personal life, in your spiritual world?
Probably not.
Really? No one? I'm just calling those. Do you guys don't know? You guys don't know about Katie and Buddhism? That's that. Oh my gosh, there's so much to talk about. I don't even know where to start. That you don't ever show people who are on your Instagram channel have never seen you do the collective prayer together, like you guys doing your incredible daily prayers.
I guess if they came to an event here at the Science Center or they're part of the Golden Aura Smoke Offering Club, maybe they would see it. But you're right. In Nepal, it's pretty much like intermixed into the story. It's really interwoven and really, um, you kind of can't have one without the other there.
Yeah, totally can't have one without the other. And that's what I wonder about the people of Nepal. You know, the different people, the people I know who are Hindu, and the people I know who are Buddhist, especially from that part of the world. It does seem to be baked into their worldview, and it's just not. It's not some kind of like a I'm on a meditation cushion, so I'm going to be cool now and like get all spiritual. And then when I get up and go about my daily life, I'm going to get turned into an entire stress ball and cut people off in traffic and curse at people. Like everybody they live the cushion. Like they live the meditation mat. They bring it into their life. So super excited to go to that part of the world, hopefully with you at some point. So where else do you go in these episodes? So you said, did you say Wyoming? You didn't say Wyoming. Where did you
Yeah,
say you
so the
went?
first episode is shot in Grand Tetons and Yellowstone.
That's so cool. So what's it been, what has the initial response been like for the episodes that have aired so far?
Oh, people love them. Oh my God, they're sending us like texting us photos of like their little kids on the couch, like it's kid friendly. They're watching it on the big screen. And I think the part that surprises me most, Nick, is this is the part that surprises me most in editing, and it surprises me that people watch it and they get it. Is that we thought it was going to be just like a show about let's like show you what it's like to go in the forest and like hunt for a flower. But what actually happens is it's more like a homeopathic proving. So when you're on the trip, so like let's say, you and I go on a trip together. Through the collection process, you go through the stuff that the flowers help you with. So like if there's a flower you're collecting for fear
Right.
of failure, you're gonna feel like you're a failure on
Yeah.
that trip.
Yeah.
And so from the beginning to the end, that's what surprised me the most is you can actually see it. Like Taylor and I look like completely different people by the third part as to the first part. We look different. And if you're the viewer, you kind of actually get to go through that like, ugh, and then come out on the other side. And then
Whoa.
so then like you get a little visual taste of it, and then like, okay, so if I take that flower essence, then I know, when it filters through my own filters, kind of more or less what'll happen, but with your own stuff.
That makes
And people
sense.
and people get it. Like people watch it and they get it. They get that. They understand it. It's wild. It's like
That's so crazy.
it's like yeah, you're taking me on a journey, you're taking me on a trip, you're taking me to Thailand, Indonesia, but like wherever you're taking me somewhere. But it's really more about the inner exploration. And it's like the preview for what kind of inner exploration the person will have by either visiting this place or taking these flower essences. Trippy,
So
right?
do you guys go into the history of flower essences and your teacher and how this all came about in these episodes?
No, I mean, we were kind of saving that for the big documentary film that we were working on, and this was just like a little side distraction.
Side distractions are dangerous. They can sometimes become the main distraction.
I know.
Ah, that's so good. That's amazing. So when you go into these other cultures, I mean, would you find flower essences being used in similar ways in other ancient cultures? Like when you're in the Far East, are the people there understand like what you're doing, or are they also a little bit like, whoa, what flower what? Or is there a lineage of this that you'll find in different traditions around the world?
Yes, I mean, even just like Nepal, I think we're kind of repackaging it in a different way, metaphorically and literally. Like, if you go to do Kora around the stupa, let's say in Swayambhu, and you go to this main place where these, huge statues are, you'll see people approaching this really big, what do you call it? I don't know. It's like a huge, like offering bowl, like up high, like at your waist level, full of fresh flowers. And every day people will put fresh flowers in there in the water.
Right.
And they'll take like a flower and they'll dip it and they'll like offer it to the Buddhas and the deities. And that itself is like a flower essence. The flowers are soaking in the water, the sunlight's hitting it, like all of that water in there is like, precious. But it's like in everyday life living, and it's more like an offering or like a gateway to the sacred or the divine. What we're doing with like bottling them up and introducing them to people to be able to put in their drinks and then feel better, I think that's a completely different new concept for Nepal. Like they've never seen that before. If you go into the Himalayas and you talk to people doing Tibetan Buddhist practices, they eat this substance called chulen, which is like the concentrated life force of gemstones and plants and flowers. So there's like a little bridge there of like,
Yeah.
this substance, this is similar. It's just like in a liquid form and you can have it every day. So it's not like really well known, but you see evidence of this concept everywhere.
Interesting. Yeah, for everybody who's asking, the name of the series is Flower Hunters. Flower Hunters.
Dot
And
TV.
yeah. Okay, so your teacher was Spanish? Was he from Spain? Does Mike get that right?
He
Spain?
was from Spain. Yeah, he is from Spain.
So is there a lineage there? Like, do you guys go to Spain? Are you going to track him down? Oh, I think we talked about this, and you said you maybe would. Are you going to
We
track this
did
dude down?
we did track him down and he is currently living in Argentina. He lives in Buenos Aires. He doesn't live in Spain anymore.
Okay.
And that would be a fun trip. I think that would be really fun. I think it's like super wild that I've never seen him since I first started.
So good. That's amazing. Okay. So his lineage, the lineage that you learned, where did that come from? Did this guy just kind of channel it? Did he channel it, or was he carrying it forward from somewhere else?
He's amazing. He was channeling a lot of stuff, but he was talking a lot about like Olmecas in Mexico. You know the
Okay. Yeah. The
Olmecas,
Omex.
like
Yeah. Yeah. Of course.
really far, 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 far back there,
Yeah.
and like the technologies that they had at that time. I mean, there's also like Dr. Bach in the UK, and he had Bach flower essences too. So there's like, I mean, I think in some ways it's happening all over the world. Like you see it in Australia, you see it in Africa, you see it in the Himalayas, you see it in Central America, you see it everywhere. It's just there wasn't like, it's just popping up in pockets around the world. And I would say his lineage is like from Dr. Bach in the UK, and then all of the other backstory he's studying from ancient traditions and ancient cultures.
Got it. And you're saying like the Olmecs and like the old like Mexican civilizations and Central American civilizations. Wow. That's cool. So your vision, because I remember we talked about this maybe last year, you have expanded your vision to, I forgot what it actually is now, but you want to get millions,
3%.
perhaps even cajillions, perhaps, using your flower essence. Can you talk about the spiritual side of that? Like, I mean, I don't think this is just that you want people to like have, these beautiful scents flowing around them and, interweaving into their realities. Isn't there more of an energetic thing that's going on here? I mean, what's the main, where does the rubber meet the road here for Katie Hess?
Rubber hits the road in our cellular memory and our DNA that we carry up to 7 to 8 generations in our family lineage of everything that was experienced, thought, witnessed, felt. So some people call it generational trauma, some people call it good, bad, ugly, beautiful. It's a lot of information that we're storing in the cells of our bodies. That's just one aspect. That's generational, right? So we want to turn the turn the volume down on the things that are not really us. They're just a product of our generational lineage that we've taken birth into. And then turn the volume up on like what is our true nature, our true spiritual nature. And then you look at all the experiences we've had from womb until now. That's another layer of information and how we perceive the world and what we project and how we interpret things. So removing those filters that are not helpful to us, and then again, bringing out who we really are. And then also just like everyday interactions with people, the people we spend the most time with, the people we're sexually intimate with, the people we're, spending day in, day out with. All of that information is impacting us along with the collective information and the news and the social, and all of this information we're taking in is impacting how we feel in the world and how we see what's possible and what's real. So the deepest part of the story in terms of how flower remedies work is they are operating at that level energetically to really bring everybody's true nature out faster. So if you, Nick, say, you know what, I'm gonna leave, then I'm gonna go like meditate in a cave for a while, it's rough. Like not everyone has the capacity to do that, you know? Who's gonna do that these days? And that was the way it was done. We
Don't push me.
don't, you know, and even like this, His Holiness the 17th Karma Boss says those days of sitting in the cave are over. We need to be in the world. We need to be doing things. We need to be making things happen. We need to be making an impact, right? So I see this as like the next best way to making an impact, because you want to transform the world by transforming yourself. That is number one. I don't care how many charities you donate to. I don't care how many homeless people you save. Like it's in here. That's where the deepest work is, and that's where the deepest impact is made on humanity. So how do we do that? How do we transform ourselves in order to transform the world? Well, it's like this understanding that we're all interconnected, we're all inseparable, and if you become liberated to become more fearless and badass and expressive and all of the qualities, you liberate that in me as well, and in your children, and in everybody around you, right? Who you're connected with. So it's like, how can we use this, the purity of Mother Nature, to really like turn up the speed, efficiency, coherence, and capacity of us as a human species, each person at a time, and each group at a time, and each collective at a time.
So good. We've been playing around, by we, I guess I mean me and a few people on the team have been playing around this idea of like, you know, the world operates based on this notion of economy. And I think we're all very well versed on that, in that, because we just see it everywhere, which is kind of, you know, the idea of scarcity and supply, and you know that leading to demand, and leading, a lot of it has to do with fear and survival. But if you change a couple of letters in there, you can turn economy into ecology, and when you do that, it flips everything on its head. Because if we look at society as a forest ecosystem, which I mean I can't help but do, I'm making a whole movie about trees right now, then you helping yourself, like, you know, you taking care of yourself is going to help me. If you're a big oak tree in the woods and you're sick, you're not as helpful necessarily as you would be to the other trees, saplings, fungi, mycelium around you, as you would be if you are healthy. So you taking care of yourself will indirectly benefit me. It'll directly benefit the whole, as opposed to the idea of, you know, selfishness being this, I need to kind of be separate from you and have my pile over here and make sure I build that pile at the expense of everybody else around me. That seems like the economy. That's like the economic system that we're currently feeling the fallout. Maybe in the final decades of this system even being what we operate based on. But this idea of the ecology, it goes so far. It's not just about you taking care of yourself and the people around you. It's when you take care of you, especially because I think we're both, I don't know, you don't want people to know about this, but we're both very Buddhist in nature. Me taking care of myself, if we're all one, if we're all basically universal energy, then me taking care of me is me taking care of you in any way you want to cut it. So where's the question there? And when did I become the interviewer? I thought I was going to be interviewed on this. Here's my next question.
Wait a minute, when do I get to ask questions?
My next question is, how are flowers uniquely capable of unlocking a lot of the parts of ourselves that have been shrouded in illusion?
They're so gentle. They're so soft. They're so beautiful. They're so irresistible. You know, you walk by like a giant rose or peony or lilac, you got to stick your nose in there. Or like, you know, some crazy jungle flower. You can't help but stop, you know, and look at it. And it's a reflection of us. Like we're that beautiful too, you know, and some of the stuff we don't really want to look at. It's hard to clean your closet and out underneath your bed and all, gotta look at stuff, and it's painful, and but somehow like Mother Nature and the flowers just have this really gentle support of like, hey, here's the door. You want to walk through? You want to walk through this door? And then you just kind of get caught by curiosity and beauty. You just walk through, you know, and then you start realizing like, oh, all of this stuff inside of me that I think is like shit or dirty, or I don't want to tell someone else or show someone else, or I'm ashamed of this, or oh, it's like such bad behavior here, whatever this stuff is. It's just like compost, slimy, mucky, yucky, not sexy, but that's what makes the richest soil. And when you really start digging into it, it's like that is what makes us beautiful. And then we can recognize that we have that same beauty. We have the same beauty as nature. There's nothing to like want to separate from or to get out of our system. It's just about transforming it like compost into a way that's, rich and usable.
I had this vision last week during a meditation where I went from like I've sometimes in the first 30 minutes of sitting there on the cushion, it can be like a lot of just like letting yourself get into the mindset or get out of the mindset so you can start being completely empty, like hollow bone, and just uh, be able to flow with the universal cosmic galactic energies that be. And a part of that process usually is me feeling like I'm a snake shedding skins, like constantly shedding skins. And then I had this vision. It was definitely not me. I mean, it just kind of like came through me, but which was like just instead of the snake shedding its skins, it was actually like a flower kind of like opening up, and each layer was not necessarily a thing that had to be thrown off, and it was not, but it was just the opening of like each petal, and then as the petals opened, I was able to, you're able to receive more luminosity, more direct sunlight, and there was like this crazy vision. And I guess my final question for you, because I know we're running out of time, is how does the lotus flower play into all of this?
Mm. The lotus gets added to everything we do because the lotus is one of the most spiritually charged flowers. It is for accelerating your spiritual awakening, and or you can call it spiritual awakening, you can call it also just like your wisdom, your insights, your awareness. It speeds up your own personal path, whatever that is, and connects you more deeply with your sense of divine. So it's like the whole world of herbs. There's like catalyst herbs and driver herbs. So this lotus is like a catalyst flower essence. If you add it to any other flower essences, it will amplify their capacity, their power, their synchronistic effect, and make them all around much more powerful. Do I get to ask you any questions?
Sure. Like I
um,
said, I'm an open book.
Now I want to ask you about like film and making things that are unseen be seen. Like tell me, and also you've been so committed over the years, ever since the first film I've seen you do in South America up until now, you are committed and driven to getting to the meat of things, to getting to the heart of things, to telling the real story, to letting people be vulnerable.
Mm.
Like what's the role of that kind of rawness in filmmaking and also in making the unseen seen for you?
I think that it starts with making sure that you are 100% the person who should be pointing the camera at that particular thing.
How do you do
I
that?
have met, huh?
How do you do that?
I think you just know. You have to, you just know what you're supposed to be. I think that picking up a camera and chasing after things to sort of just make stuff, I guess I'm sure that it might work for other people, but I don't know how to do that part. Like, I don't only know how to go after things that I know I need to know more about and I know are calling to me. And it's like the running joke around here is that I don't feel like I work because I would be doing exactly what I'm doing even if I wasn't getting paid to do it. And so, I mean, I know that that's kind of like the cliche, like you'll never work again. If you do what you love, you'll never work a day of your life or whatever. But I think that there's something in there that's a lot deeper than just not feeling like you're working. I think that I know that this is why I'm here, and I figured that out somewhere along the way. That's a whole different story. That's like a wounded healer story. And after I helped myself using alternative and natural medicines, I just naturally was amazed that the world wasn't aware of these things. And then once you get into the minutia of each of these healing traditions, you realize there's this energetic layer to it that underlies all of it, and then there's a spiritual layer under that. And then as you continue to kind of pull at the thread, the whole thing starts getting much more messy and crazy and cool. And so, yeah, I think that to be able to authentically tell the story, you need to make sure that you're the person who should be telling it.
Okay,
Not
so
just because and it's gonna carry over to the viewer. The viewer is gonna know, like, if you're somebody who was phoning it in, or if you're somebody who was clearly just there on the edge of their seat with them. It's very clear when you watch something that was shot at arm's length, and when you watch something that was clearly consumed the filmmakers. You could just tell. You can tell, in any of the amazing documentary filmmakers out there, I would say, fall into this category. The Werner Herzogs of the world. Like, they're sitting there in the taiga in Siberia, not because, like, oh, it seems like this would be a cool thing. The market really wants a film about the taiga. And no, he's there because he's being called by something viscerally to be out there. And so he has that eye, and you see it. You see the meditation on the subject matter.
what part of you is being called for each of the two projects you're working on now? The trees project and the spices silk route. What's the deepest part of you being called out?
The Trees movie has been the most challenging project I've ever worked on. And, it's funny, you were talking about the fact that people can watch you and Taylor go through a crazy process in each episode as you're hunting for the flowers, because it's not just about, the hunt for the flowers. It's everything is holistic, as above, so below. And in that liminal kind of reality, there isn't this, 1+1=2 situation. Like, sometimes you get the answer before you even get the equation. And that same thing's been happening with the Trees movie. I started making it in 2020. It was because it was in response to all the fires in the Amazon rainforest that year. I was really having a hard time with that. It was like destroying my reality in ways that I can't really put words on, but it was just really messing with me. I was in a serious, like, depression over it. And then at one point I just realized, I'm like, well, you could sit here and be upset about it, or you can just start trying to help in whatever way you're uniquely qualified to provide help with. And so I started mapping out the Trees movie, which was going to be this romp around the globe where we look at all these incredible reforestation projects happening and sort of provide some hope. And as soon as I went from being in that, like, depressed about this reality in the Amazon rainforest situation, as soon as I literally started mapping it out and started making phone calls and telling people, hey, I think I'm gonna start making this movie, all the depression went away. It wasn't even like a part, like 10% decrease in depression. Like, all of the gloom went away, because I had turned the ship away from the storm and just turned it into the storm. And I think that's kind of what we're doing with most of the stuff that we have worked on with the sacred science, is just turning our ships into the storm and trying to tell the story, even though we have no idea when we start out what the hell the story is going to be. There's something that's deeply healing about just getting started on the path of making the projects. And with the Trees movie, it's just been such a crazy roller coaster ride. It's taken me into the valley. It's exposed so many things in me that I didn't realize were there. I've gone through a lot of personal transformation. I don't know if it shows at all, probably doesn't, but I've gone through so much processing of, like, darknesses and demons that I had, and still I'm sure do have, but it's been such a healing experience just making it. It's been medicine. So that's the Trees movie. I don't even know if I answered your question there. And then there's a Spice Road, and the Spice Road movie is still, it's really still in, it's in the conceptual stages. It's definitely, I'm just reading everything I can get my hands on right now. And that's painful for me, because I am not a patient person. I want to just turn cameras on and just go somewhere and figure it out. It's worked for me in the past. But the trees movies taught me that some things need better planning, and that was one of the first things I learned for the first couple of years of that. I'm like, no, you can't just show up for this one and just kind of point cameras and stuff. You need to actually do extensive, painstaking research on what's going on here. Same thing's happening with the Spice Road. So those are the two projects. What made me feel like I was uniquely qualified to point the camera at those projects? I just know I have a curious, unquenchable curiosity about both these topics. And so I think I'm not even really thinking about anything beyond that. I'm just thinking, if I point cameras at this topic and I don't end up making a movie, I'm still going to be stoked that we spent the time and resources to get all the footage. So whatever happens with this project, both of them, I'm going to be stoked just to be there, which to me is usually a good sign. I'm like, okay, I don't even apparently even really care what happens with this. I just need to be there.
Yeah.
I'm either going to be there myself looking at them, but then if I'm there by myself looking at them without a film crew, I'm going to be bummed out the entire time that I don't have a film crew with me helping me tell the story.
What do you think is calling you with the Spice Road?
The Spice
What?
Road, what gets me about the Spice Road is that we as Westerners are so disconnected from the herbs that we use in our food. I mean, this is going to be a lot more than just food herbs when we make it, but I think that no one knows about the sacred aspect of black pepper, for example, and the wars that were fought over it and the territorial. I mean, this little thing you put on your eggs in the morning is not just this thing that's always been there. It's like this was a coveted resource, a coveted commodity, and it has so many different dimensions to it. It has such a cultural richness to it. And I think for me, something that drives almost everything that I do is this disbelief at how much we've forgotten about everything that is just in front of us because we live in this consumerist capitalist society. It has all kinds of wonderful things that go along with it, but part of the cost that we pay, the tax, is we seem to have forgotten just about everything about how the world works, about where what we put in our mouth comes from, and as part of that, we've become disconnected from our reality. And meditation is extremely exciting to me. It fell on me 2 years ago, and now I've just become like this devout, annoying cheerleader for meditation that everyone I'm sure is sick of hearing about, because it's another way to connect to the obvious reality without any middleman. I feel like that's what I'm trying to do, is remove the middleman who's kind of somehow told you a story about his story, about what you're experiencing, instead of allowing you to have direct experience of reality, which I think is what all this Buddhist stuff we talk about is all about. All the shamanic stuff that I'm into is speaking to. Animism is speaking to direct experience of reality without any filtration system. So I think that part of what we're doing with I think maybe I'll even go as far as, I think everything that I do has that aspect to it. It's like, wait, where are we lifting the veil here? Okay, where are we showing everybody that you've been told this? We're not going to tell you a whole different story. We're just going to help you lift the veil so you can see it for yourself. Because the reality around you, when you get rid of all the words and the labels and the constructs that you've been spoon-fed since you were 2 years old, the reality around you without all that stuff is terrifyingly infinite. And that's where the healing happens. And I think that might be also what the flower essences are helping us get to.
Well, okay, I'm in. I love it. It's so beautiful the way you articulate it.
Yay!
As you were talking about the black pepper, I was thinking there's one guy I want to connect you with. His name is Dr. Dindup. He's a young, extremely talented Tibetan medicine doctor who lives in Kathmandu.
Okay.
And like forages in the wild for his remedies, and does everything himself. And that might be a really interesting person to talk to.
How was it getting your film equipment? Did you have a lot of stuff, or did you guys travel light?
We went super light. We just, Taylor had our DSLR, but we used DJI cameras, so they're just like on a stick, and we're going low tech.
Yeah.
And I think it's great, like for what we need, and on the go and run and gun and a few tripods here and there. Like I'm learning. Like this is Taylor's wheelhouse. I'm just sort of along for the ride and learning.
So good. what else are you guys gonna film? Are you guys gonna film more episodes, or is this
We
like
want to,
basically?
yeah, so like every Thursday we'll release something that has to do with flower remedies, for in terms of like big intensive trips and travel and shooting and editing, because right now we just decided to do all our editing in-house. We're doing one big trip quarterly. So we've got,
Okay,
one US, we've got Nepal in the bag, then we have to get our butts somewhere soon.
so
Maybe
good.
Taiwan, maybe Thailand, I don't know,
It's
somewhere
so
to see.
good. But in between shoots is the most danger for me. It's the most dangerous. It's the most dangerous span of time in a year is when I'm in between shoots, because in between shoots I start forgetting about how I need to be shooting all the time. I just start getting into the footage. I mean, we've got thousands of hours of footage that have never seen the light of day. I mean, we're in the middle of, ask Moline about it. And like, we've got a whole team that's starting to dig into all of it right now. But like, I sit on footage. Like, I will literally, I have constipation of footage. Like,
Same, same.
I'll film it and then I'll be like, okay, cool. Let me just, okay, we're just gonna wait, and then we have so much other stuff we have to do. But then I get very wary of weeks and months starting to stack between shoots, because they kind of grow. It's like the law of inertia. Like, object in motion will stay in motion. When you stop, it's like, be careful. Like, you got to. And I like your idea of like it being a quarterly thing where you have a quota of shooting to do, so that you don't start getting bogged down in like, the regular civilian life. Like, we got to be out there filming stuff. We got to be out there all the time capturing things.
Oh,
And I do also like the idea. I mean, budgetarily, it's risky and some always a consideration, but like filming stuff, and not even for me with the trees movie, it's been really rewarding. Though, we were up in British Columbia in September, filmed for 3 weeks, and I would usually go into a shoot like that and I'm like, okay, here's what we need to get, and hopefully by the time after these 20 days of shooting, we will have enough to then do X. And so I always have that, and it's kind of, to be effective in a lot of ways, you need to kind of have parameters and buoys and channel markers and beacons set up, cairns on your trail so you know where you're going. But sometimes it can really get in the way of the spontaneity while you're filming, is when you are bogged down by like the bottom line, and you're like, oh no, we better return with something. It can really affect the energy of a project. And when we were up in northern Canada in September, I just went in. I planned the hell out of it. We planned. We knew what we were doing. We had contacts wherever we needed to have them. But after it was done, we just I tore up the plan, and I was like, all right, cool, let's go. And let's just and we ended up like driving 3,570 miles, and just following leads. Like, we would get the stuff that we knew we were supposed to be, we wanted to get, that were sort of on the plan, on the agenda. But then there were open days where we just took off and went and found crazy stuff happening, crazy things that just started kind of happening, coincidentally, but really because we had set up the container, I think, and we're being super present. All of a sudden, we were seeing things that just don't ever happen there. And there was like a new blockade had just gone up to protect some of the last old growth forest in this remote area on Vancouver Island. And they were like, the Pachidot tribe, a Pachidot band had set up this crazy blockade. We got invited into it. And so we were like, things that were just like, you couldn't have tried to schedule it or couldn't have tried to plan for it. There was something about letting go and being super present and flowy and like just grateful to be there with cameras and just having fun and being on the adventure that really seemed to open things up for us. So yes, so that all goes back to the idea of like creating the container once a quarter, and where you just know that regardless, we are filming for 2 weeks a quarter. Like, I think that will lend itself to that beautiful type of spontaneity, and synchronicity.
there was a question about water, the story of water, and how it animates plant life consciousness, and curious how that affects both of our work and our stories. I guess for me, the water is the medium. Water is the way that the flower essences get into your electric system. So it's kind of everything. What would you say?
Mm.
Anything about water, Nick?
I mean, when I think about water specifically with regard to the trees movie, hydrology and forest ecology go hand in hand. And what you're seeing in a lot of different regions of the world right now, and we feel it here in the States. There's wildfires raging up in Canada every year, and we are getting all that smoke. And the idea that those wildfires aren't just some natural thing that's been happening forever. It has to do with a lot of the forest management practices that are being used in Canada, and how those forest management practices are affecting the water tables, the watersheds, and how it's having this cumulative cascading effect on the landscape. And so, the idea of hydrology of water and the work that we do, especially with the trees movie, I mean, they just go hand in hand. It's the main story. The main story in Canada right now is water, and the trees are part of that story. But the main story in British Columbia is, how are all these crazy landslides happening, destroying towns? How are these crazy floods starting to happen? How are these droughts starting to happen? And then the wildfire situation is a result of lack of moisture, and it's starting to become very apparent. It's a result of clear cutting, taking every single tree out of the watersheds. Like, this is the most sacred patches of forest in a landscape, are the ones that are really harboring this watershed and protecting the springs, and also giving a home to a variety of different animal species. And so, yeah, water is sacred, and it's
Like everything. It's life.
what I mean. It's when you look at, here's one little cool thing. When you look at part of our one area of focus we have in the trees movie is this region. It's on the Skeena, which is a body of water in like northwestern British Columbia, and the First Nations there have a deep relationship and with salmon, obviously, and also a deep relationship with the trees. And there have been studies that have been conducted on the trees to test the DNA of these specific species of trees that grow right by the water. And they've done a study on this particular, I think it might be a Douglas fir or a cedar, and the local salmon. And the local salmon and the trees share so much. They're so interconnected that they share 33% of the same DNA. The salmon get brought up into the woods by birds, by bears. They get eaten. Their carcasses then disintegrate into, decompose into the soil. And so much of that happens that over time, a lot of the trees have taken up the molecular structure of the salmon that have decomposed and have started to share a lot of the same DNA, a lot of the same genetics. And so it's crazy. It's so, you can tell, by looking at the tree rings of a lot of these trees, when was an amazing year for salmon, like going back, 300, 400, 500 years. Just by looking at the tree ring and taking a specimen of that tree ring, you can get an idea of how much salmon was taken into that tree, and how well the salmon were doing on the local bodies of water that kind of infiltrate the watersheds. So anyway, that was a long answer, and I don't even know if it has anything to do with the sacredness of water, but yeah, water, very important.
Everything. Okay, there's one more question here for you, Nick. And I think it's because what we're noticing is, we have this like situation that's going on when we collect the flower, and then we come back and we're in the editing process and we're in the release process. And what I can see now is that while Taylor and I had this like little mini cycle of stuff while we were collecting the flowers, being back home, I see the whole team going through stuff as
Yeah.
we're releasing these series. So Taylor said, does Nick ever experience a healing crisis in the editing process? And or I would throw in there, do you ever see that your team goes through like sort of a healing crisis process while you're in the editing or release or launch process?
Are you saying because of the footage itself, contains information that takes people there, or because it's just the intensity of trying to run a media platform?
I mean, it could be the footage, or it could just be like, this is your next story. This is something that's calling to you. This is something that's rearranging your structure. This is asking you to be the biggest version of yourself. So, like, as you're editing, does it do you ever go through a period where you're like, you know, I quit, or this is hard, or am I gonna make it? Or, like literally you're sitting there in the editing room and you're just like, crisis. And can you talk about that?
Oh my
So Taylor
gosh.
doesn't feel alone.
Good, good thing you saved a little softball question for the last question. Uh, yeah, I it's really hard. It's every one of these projects is its own invention. It's its own thing that hasn't that I mean, if you're doing it right, at least in my opinion, you're not creating a film in this situation around a topic that's already been extensively covered, where you can look to other people for guidance. You specifically on this one, I mean, no, like flower essences, most people aren't even aware of what flower essence is, and now you're making a whole film about it. So I think that there's always going to be those feelings of like absolute loneliness and, oh man, I'm out on the tightrope, and I thought I had the cargo net underneath me, but I apparently don't. I am now, just hopefully this is going to work out. Imposter syndrome is real. There is not like a person that I know of who is successful, a thought leader who doesn't suffer from imposter syndrome. It's the idea that, who am I to be making this? Who do I think I am? All of a sudden, Nick's going to be the person pointing cameras, at this particular culture that's way far away, that he has no genetic link to. It's just like, I'm just going to show up as like the token white dude who's got a camera who wants to film some stuff. It's like there's all kinds of ways to get into your head, for sure, especially when things aren't going very well. When things are going great, it's like it's exhilarating. But when you realize that you thought you had a story, oh my God, this happened with the Trees movie so badly in 2022 and 2023. I thought I knew the story we were telling. And then some crazy events happened, scientifically, that shifted the narrative completely away from what we had as our like foundational structure for the project. And I was like, and I didn't even realize it. It was so sneaky, but I stopped touching the project, and I went into my wife was probably the person who told me. She's like, "Hey, you're not doing good right now." I didn't realize it. I went into probably like a 3 to 6 month, like pretty, dark period. But at the same time, it was transmuted into medicine. So, I mean, yes, the editing process and the filmmaking process is painful, but like everything in life, it's like, we can look at it in two different ways. The famous Harvard ethnobotanist Richard Evans Schultes has this great quote about how the difference between a medicine and a poison is dose. And so I think that this can be poison, and then it can also be medicine. And so, I mean, I went through the valley for those 6 months. I got walked deep, dark into this valley. And I was like, at some point I was like, who am I? Why am I here? Who do I think I am? Like, what is this? I didn't think it was going to be like this, and where do I go? I lost that little like thin silver cord that like, kind of pulls you through, your purpose cord that pulls you through the bad stuff. And that compass that helps you navigate those feelings of lostness. They all went away for like 3 to 6 months. They just literally, I was like dropped off in this valley, and I didn't know how to get out. And then slowly but surely, instead of just sitting there, I started just taking some steps and started moving, and we just started putting faith in the idea that if I just start moving, I'll remember where I am. Yeah, and it was painful. And then slowly but surely, once I started like trying to figure out my last known point of, my last known location, and like who was I talking to, and like who were the friends of this project. Let me just start calling up some of the friends of the project. Like started calling up Sonia First, who was the former leader of the Green Party in British Columbia, who's been like this incredible force. So I'm like, man, I gotta call Sonia. Why am I not calling Sonia? Oh, because I'm ashamed. I'm ashamed this happened, and I don't want Sonia to know. Oh, interesting. Well, what if you could just call her and she's cool? I called her. She's like, hey, what's going on? Like, this happened. She's like, okay, cool, awesome. What do we do now? And like, I just realized like things started lifting as I started like getting out of this like weird little cocoon of shame and sadness and lostness. and then I got pulled out, and now here we are. It's like, we're cruising right now, and I have all that medicine from that experience. So yes, it's going to get hard, but I mean, damn, I don't know if I would try to bridge over the hard parts, because they give you that wisdom that lasts.
Wow. I love it. So good. How can people get more of you?
sacredscience.com is pretty decent. I write the blog there. You also will, if you join our mailing list, then you'll get notified of all the cool documentaries, docu-series. Just join our mailing list, and then I'll just start bothering you.
You're such a great writer. I love
Oh
it.
yeah, right. I'm okay. It's like Nick's diary. It's like,
It's great. I love it. I love it.
I gotta catch
I'm
up.
so
I gotta watch
curious to know
episode
what you
one.
think. I'm so curious.
I'm
It's
doing
not
it.
polished. It's goofy. It's ridiculous. I
All
can't wait
right.
to get your feedback.
I am so in. I'm gonna have my spray. I'm gonna have my drops. I'm gonna do it all. I'm gonna get the full experience.
Thanks so
Thank you
much
for
for your time, Nick.
thank you
You're
for
such a gem.
thank you for the work that you do. Thank you for being
Mm.
an inspiration to us all.
You too, you too. Likewise. Much love to everybody over there. And thank you all for joining. Thank you so much for being here. Really, really appreciate it.